Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I'm going over Alvin Kamara and what his chances are at the NFL MVP. Last night, Alvin Kamara had 6 touchdowns, and it tied the most for the most rushing touchdowns in a single game in NFL history, and he is currently at 21 scrimmage touchdowns on the season after that game. Kamara's had a phenomenal season so far, and he wasn't really in the MVP conversation. But looking back at his statistics, and after that game, thinking about what he's done for his team and the season that his team has had, I started thinking that he might actually be a candidate. First of all, I like to compare his stats with Derrick Henry's. A lot of people have been saying that Derrick Henry has a possibility of getting the NFL MVP this season, and Alvin Kamara has kind of been on the back burner. Henry has basically been the running back. Usually, every year there's one running back candidate that people have in the running, and this season it's Derrick Henry. Going into this week, before this game, Derrick Henry had a clear advantage over Alvin Kamara. But now, after this game is done, Alvin Kamara has 187 carries for 932 yards, 16 touchdowns, as well as 83 catches for 739 yards and 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry has 1,671 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, as well as 19 receptions for 114 yards. So the biggest key differences here is that Derrick Henry has about 100 more scrimmage yards over the course of the season with one less game, as well as having 6 less total touchdowns. Derrick Henry leads the NFL in rushing and scrimmage yards, but Derrick Henry leads the NFL in rushing and scrimmage touchdowns. Derrick Henry is 10-4 and Alvin Kamara is 11-4. Both teams will probably end up either 12-4 or 11-5 on the season. And I can project that Alvin Kamara will probably have around 1,800 yards and 24 touchdowns, 23, 24. And Derrick Henry will probably have around 2,150 for yards and 18 touchdowns. So Henry has the advantage for yards, and if he has a 2,000-yard season, that gives him a major advantage. As for Alvin Kamara, he has the advantage in touchdowns, but he needs at least 70 yards in the next game, because if he doesn't get 1,000 yards, then he doesn't get the MVP. Holding them back, Henry barely has 1,000 yards, and Derrick Henry doesn't catch the football. Most of the running backs that we've seen get the NFL MVP have at least one receiving touchdown, and they catch the ball a couple of times over the course of the season. Derrick Henry has a couple of receptions, but not really anything great. What sets Kamara apart? So the starting quarterback has been in and out of the lineup. Drew Brees has been in and out of the lineup, and Taysom Hill played a couple games as the starter. Alvin Kamara has been one of the only consistent parts of this offense, because the wide receiver position has also been kind of a revolving door. With a couple of other injuries, as well as Michael Thomas, the main receiver on the team, this team has been revolving around Kamara. Kamara has been the consistent factor in this team, as well as Jared Cook, but Kamara can catch, he can run, he can do anything. He can play any position that the offense requires. He can play tight end, he can block, he can run, he can catch. And the fact of the matter is that if you have one consistent player on your offense, and you have one of the most powerful offenses in the NFL, then that player is probably one of the most valuable players on your team, if not in the league. As for Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes has some of the best weapons in the NFL to throw to, and Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, who have been phenomenal throughout their entire careers. Alvin Kamara doesn't have a quarterback that it has been consistently there the whole season, and the offensive line has had some injuries as well. Potential for a top 10 scrimmage touchdowns of all time also is a big implication. If he can get up to 24 scrimmage touchdowns, then he will be number 6 in a single season for all time. That has to mean something, and the fact of the matter is that I know that a lot of them came from one game, but if he can get 23, 24 touchdowns and get into that top 10 spot, then that's a major, major benefit to him for MVP. And finally, there's a slight correlation between the amounts of rushes that he has and the losses that the Saints have endured. The Raiders' loss had almost no correlation, but the other 3 losses, 3 of the 4 games were in the top 4 lowest carries that he's had on the season. He had 11 carries against Kansas City and Philadelphia and 6 carries against Green Bay. He averages around 13 or 14 carries a game, but his 11 carry games are tied at fourth lowest. And the reason why it's only 13 or 14 is because his sixth, the lowest game of the season, brings it down so much. Against Green Bay, that was one of their worst losses, and it was the lowest amount of times that Kamara rushed the football. Kamara has been a very major part of this offense, and when he doesn't get the ball or he doesn't run with the football as much, the offense is much easier to gauge how they're going to play, and that that depth that he adds is so crucial to the Saints' offense. I also have a comparison to running back MVPs from the 2000s. I'm not comparing him to LaDainian Tomlinson because Tomlinson had a fantastic season. He had the best season of a running back in NFL history, or one of the, at least arguably the best. So I can't really compare him to LaDainian Tomlinson, but I do have Sean Alexander and Adrian Peterson's statistics from their MVP seasons. I combined all of I predicted what Kamara's total scrimmage yards are going to be, and I combined scrimmage yards together to have a total amount of yards as well as touches and touchdowns. Kamara has 100 less touches than either Adrian Peterson or Sean Alexander, is the first key thing, and that could potentially hurt him. If he's not used as much as some of the other previous MVPs, then there's an argument that he's not as important because he's not being used. But I think that it's because of the position that he plays and the way that he plays football and the way that he's required to play for the team is what impacts that. And I think that shouldn't be a factor in him getting the MVP, but I think it might be. But if you look at yards per attempt or yards per touch, he is much higher. He is 0.3 higher than Adrian Peterson yards per touch and 1.1 yards per touch higher than Sean Alexander because of his catching. He does have 150 yards less than Alexander and 500 yards less than Adrian Peterson, but he's right in between for touchdowns, and I think that's a major benefit to him. He has almost double the touchdowns that Adrian Peterson had when he won the MVP, and the Saints are likely going to go 12-4, which is 2 games better than Adrian Peterson. I think a side-to-side comparison of Kamara and Adrian Peterson, Kamara is having a better season than Adrian Peterson did when he won the MVP, but there's an argument to be made there that if Kamara doesn't get 2,000 yards like Peterson did, then he shouldn't get the MVP. And I see that as a very fair point. Or if he doesn't get as many touchdowns as Sean Alexander did. I mean, you can't expect anyone to get the second most touchdowns of all time. But if you're going to give it to an MVP, if you're deciding the MVP, then that might be something that you look at. I think that the only thing hurting Kamara is the fact that he rushes and receives too much. Well, a lot of running backs that catch the football also have good rushing stats. Alvin Kamara has been a fantastic player, but he hasn't had 1,000-yard rushing season ever. This could be his first year with 1,000 yards. So, and for someone as good as he is, that's surprising. It's shockingly surprising. So the fact of the matter is that if he might not get it because of his rushing statistics. This leads me to my next and final point, though, of Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas played for the Buffalo Bills from 1988 to 2000, and he won the NFL MVP in 1991. In that season, Thurman Thomas had 288 rushes for 1,407 yards, 62 catches for 631 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and 7 rushing touchdowns, for a total of 2,038 yards and 12 rushing receiving touchdowns. This is very similar to how Alvin Kamara plays, but the difference is that he doesn't catch as many footballs as Kamara does, and he gets more rushing attempts than Kamara does. And I think that is, again, one of the things that's going to hurt him. He has around the same yards per attempt as Alvin does, but he has more rushing attempts and more chances to run the football. Thurman Thomas had more rushing attempts this season than Alvin Kamara had total touches this season. So if you're looking at NFL MVP, then you need someone. If you're looking at a running back, then I think that the only thing that's keeping Alvin Kamara from getting the MVP is the fact that he doesn't run with the football enough. But that doesn't mean that the NFL can't give it to him. Alvin Kamara is a player that we haven't really seen in the NFL. Thurman Thomas is one of the closest things that we've seen before to Alvin Kamara, a superstar player that gets a lot of Pro Bowls, between rushing and receiving the football. But the difference is that Thurman Thomas was mainly a rusher, and he got 1,000 yards almost every season. Kamara, on the other hand, does not. Kamara has never gotten 1,000 yards until potentially this year, and that's going to be a very interesting it's going to be very interesting to see how they look at that for the MVP. I think that Kamara should be in the conversation, but I don't think that he's going to get the MVP. I think that he fits the description of most valuable player because he's the only consistent part of the Saints offense. But I think that sometimes things like that get overlooked because it is a quarterback award, and if it's a quarterback, it's generally a quarterback award, and you're not having a record-breaking season as a running back, then you're not likely going to be getting the NFL MVP. So those are just my 2 cents on Alvin Kamara. He had a fantastic game the other night. I thought it was very entertaining to watch, and I was very excited to see some of the plays that he made. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Merry Christmas to everyone, or Happy Holidays to anyone that does not celebrate Christmas. This is a very happy time of year. It's a very exciting time of year. And I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful holiday season. I'll see you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.